Wonder Woman 1984 just hit HBO Max and select movie theaters that are open on this beautiful and joyful holiday of Christmas, but does it live up to the critical acclaim of the first film? Let's find out. So if you haven't seen my review of the first Wonder Woman film that I reviewed last week, that I will link down below in the description. I wasn't a massive fan of that film after initially liking it when it first came out, and then on rewatch, just not so good. But this time around, I was excited about this new film, and I gotta say, I do think it is a superior film. This is because the film feels more like a classic comic book Wonder Woman film than we saw before. This film is a good movie that I ended up enjoying. Let's start off with the positives, as I really thought everyone did a stable job with Gal Gadot and Chris Pine having some of the best scenes in the film. They were the best part of the first film, so they had to bring Steve Trevor back, which I won't reveal how they do this, but it felt integral to the plot. I was astonished how effective and interesting this was, that felt important rather than just throwing Steve Trevor in for the sake of it. Kristen Wiig was the one performance I was the most worried about because I didn't know how she could fit the role, and she did an excellent job. Besides the first act that felt more like Kristen Wiig, she grew into the character and impressed me with how much she became this character. Pedro Pascal gave the best performance, as he had the best scenes with being a little over the top but selling it to make it severe and an actual threat. All these characters were very well developed and felt vital to the story. We cared about them in some capacity. The action scenes are heavily improved from the last film, to say the least, as it got better as the movie went along. Patty Jenkins stepped up to the plate and seems as though she worked ridiculously hard directing the action sequences because they feel so much more fluent, exciting, and can tell what is happening, making the movie automatically better than the first film. There are some incredible fight scenes that were all so much better than every action scene in the first one. The action still does have its many issues though, with still using tons of cheesy slow motion scenes that are less than the first but feel so unnecessary and made some big pivotal moments a little too cheesy and stupid. Overall, the direction was much better, as Patty captured many of these scenes more efficiently and impactfully than before. It is just a better film to look at and enjoy, which took a whole lot of stress off this film. The editing is much improved, as it isn't perfect and in some scenes it is quite bad, but having better crafted shot selections on the action scenes made editing much more comfortable and better to watch. The costume design is also great, just like the first film that all looked great. The 1980s style was noticeably clear and looked incredibly right for its time. Hans Zimmer scored the film this time around, which I think is a massive improvement than the last movie that feels quite different, even changing Wonder Woman's central theme. It felt much more appropriate and aesthetically sounds better, making the film much more exciting and fun. However, there are many scenes where the score is inappropriately used, especially in the big moments that I felt ruined that whole scene entirely, that I don't think was Zimmer's fault. Sound design is also great, with tons of explosive sounding gunshots blaring off with cool explosions, along with excellent hand-to-hand combat scenes that make it feel so much more alive. The visual effects are a big step up with a bigger budget that looks 100 times better than the last film that I thought looked so distractingly bad. This time around works so well, as it is used purposefully, which helps due to much better cinematography that looks and feels like a fun blockbuster comic book movie that is serviceable. The third act is 100 times better than the first film's atrocious third act that felt much different than your standard comic book movie at times and felt exciting, meaningful, and an actual threat. I didn't like how the last 15 minutes were going, but I ended up finishing very well and did something I wasn't expecting, which I was overly impressed with. Now let's get onto the boatload of negatives, starting off with the writing. Again, I am not sure who has the most writing credit for this screenplay, but they are the most significant criticisms in both films. It is very frustrating when I enjoy a lot of this film, but the writing is so cliche, boring, and at times so damn cheesy that it took me right out of the film. I wanted to be excited and felt like there was a ton of danger going on screen, but the writing is so bad it made this film feel like another side quest superhero sequel film. The film goes right with the development of the characters, which are obviously the essential aspects to nail in a movie. Still, The dialogue is god-awful, along with the story that I'm just not that interested in and feels all over the place. The film has too much going on and can never decide who this movie's focus should be. I'm glad all these characters got their own screen time and didn't feel shoehorned in, but I didn't feel attached to anyone because there's too much happening at once. This film felt like two movies stuffed into one, as the filmmaking crew didn't know what they wanted to decide on, so they just threw it all in. I don't think all these storylines were completely fulfilled to their potential. The humor didn't work for me in this movie, as every joke felt so flat and didn't seem to execute all that well, which is very disappointing. The first half feels so stretched out, as the second half finally comes together and becomes a fun, exciting movie with stakes. I think this film could have been trimmed down about 30 minutes and would have been such a better film. Also, the first 11 minutes of the movie are merely horrible. It goes on for so long and feels completely useless. I know its point is to set up a theme of the story, but it wouldn't change anything about this film if you took it entirely out. One last negative is that the time setting honestly didn't feel important whatsoever. It felt like a marketing gimmick or just a way to set up some futuristic jokes with Steve Trevor. Sure, you can argue that it is involved for one of the significant schemes that happen later in the film, along with loads of sexism that the male characters spew onto our main characters, that did feel very poorly executed just due to bad writing that I think worked better in the first film. Overall, this is a good and fun movie that has so many great and fun aspects to it that keep this movie watchable and felt like a fun, silly comic book movie. Still, the film's writing is merely terrible, with an overstuffed plot, atrocious dialogue, and feeling all over the place that kept me very bored throughout that should have been a 2-hour movie. I'm giving this film a 6 out of 10. So, let me know if you have checked out Wonder Woman 1984 yet, and if you have, what did you think of the film and where does it rank in your DCEU film rankings? Don't forget to like and share the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a fun and exciting video. As always, I will see you all in the next video.